love, trust, and devotion, words that should define a marriage. For me, however, those words had always carried a different meaning. My name is Evelyn, and my husband, Daniel, was the kind of man most women only dream of. Tall, impeccably dressed, and always composed, he had an air of quiet authority that made him irresistible. When we married, I believed I had found perfection. But perfection often hides the deepest of secrets. Our love was unconventional, laced with unspoken agreements and silent understandings. Daniel didn't fit the mold of a possessive husband. He didn't just tolerate attention from other men, he relished it. He loved knowing that I turned heads, that eyes lingered on me when I walked into a room. More than that, he encouraged it. It started subtly. A lingering glance at a party, a flirtatious comment over dinner. At first, I played along, thinking it was a harmless game. But soon, I realized this wasn't just fun for Daniel. It was something more. Something deeper. One evening, we attended a high-profile charity gala in the heart of the city. The venue oozed elegance, with crystal chandeliers casting golden light over the sea of well-dressed guests. Daniel, ever the gentleman, held my waist as we entered, his grip firm yet gentle. "You look stunning tonight," he whispered against my ear, his voice rich with something unreadable. I had chosen a red dress, backless, with a plunging neckline that hinted at more than it revealed. I could feel the weight of countless eyes tracing my silhouette, but only one gaze sent a thrill down my spine. Adrian. I noticed him the moment we arrived. Tall, dark-haired, exuding confidence without arrogance. He leaned casually against the bar, his piercing gaze locked onto me with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. Daniel noticed too. He always did. "Go talk to him," he murmured, his fingers pressing lightly against the small of my back. I turned, arching a brow. "You want me to?" "Yes," he said simply, his lips curving into a knowing smirk. "I love watching you." A rush of excitement surged through me, a mixture of thrill and uncertainty. We had played these games before, harmless flirting, teasing glances, but this felt different. This felt dangerous. I hesitated for a brief moment before stepping away from Daniel's side. The sound of clinking glasses and soft jazz music filled the air as I approached the bar, my heels clicking against the polished floor. "Enjoying the party?" I asked, my voice smooth, my confidence unwavering. Adrian's lips curled into a slow, deliberate smile. "I am now." His gaze lingered, drinking me in, his presence commanding yet effortless. He was unlike any man I had ever met, bold without being aggressive, charming without being overbearing. His confidence was intoxicating. "You look breathtaking," he said, his voice low. "Thank you," I replied, my eyes flickering toward Daniel. He was watching, his expression unreadable, his fingers wrapped around a glass of whiskey. "Your husband doesn't seem the jealous type," Adrian noted, amusement dancing in his gaze. "He's not," I admitted. "Interesting." Silence stretched between us, charged and electric. Then, he leaned in slightly, his voice barely above a whisper. "If you were mine, I wouldn't let you out of my sight." A shiver ran through me. The way he spoke, the way his presence dominated the space between us, it was exhilarating. "Is that so?" I teased, tilting my head slightly. Adrian smirked but said nothing. Instead, he lifted his glass, his fingers brushing against mine as he handed me a drink. The touch was brief but deliberate, a silent promise of something more. I took a sip, the crisp taste of champagne bubbling against my lip. My heart pounded as I felt Daniel's gaze burning into me from across the room. The game had begun. When I returned to Daniel's side, his fingers trailed along my arm, his touch possessive yet playful. "You liked that," he mused. "Maybe," I admitted, my pulse still racing. That night, Daniel made love to me with an intensity one hadn't felt in years. It was raw, consuming, fueled by something neither of us could name. As I lay in his arms afterward, my mind drifted back to Adrian, his gaze, his touch, his words. I told myself it was just a harmless game. But deep down I knew I was lying. Temptation is a slippery slope. It starts as a whisper, a fleeting thought, a moment of curiosity. But once the door is cracked open, it never truly closes again. Days passed since the gala, yet Adrian's voice lingered in my mind. His touch, brief, almost innocent, still burned against my skin. I told myself it was nothing. A meaningless flirtation. A harmless indulgence. But then the messages started. It was casual at first. A simple text. Adrian, had a great time talking to you at the gala. You're intriguing, Evelyn. I should have ignored it. But I didn't. Me likewise. You certainly know how to hold a conversation. One message turned into 2. 2 became 10. And soon, our exchanges grew bolder, flirtation laced between every word. One evening, Daniel was in his study, reviewing a contract for work. I sat curled on the couch, my phone in my hands, heart racing as I type. Adrian, tell me something, Evelyn. Does your husband know how much you love the attention? I hesitated, biting my lip. Me, he enjoys watching. He likes knowing that other men want me. There was a pause before his response came through. Adrian, and do you like being wanted? My breath hitched. I should have stopped then. I should have closed the conversation, placed my phone down, and walked away. But I didn't. Me, more than I should. Adrian didn't reply immediately. Instead, 3 dots hovered on the screen, teasing me with anticipation. Then, his response came, and it sent a shiver down my spine. Adrian, meet me for dinner. A simple request. A dangerous proposition. I glanced toward Daniel's study, my heart pounding. If I told him, he wouldn't stop me. He might even encourage it. But this was different. This wasn't just a game anymore. Still, the thrill was too intoxicating to resist. Me, where and when? The restaurant was upscale, intimate. Dim lighting cast shadows across linen-covered tables, and soft music hummed in the background. Adrian was already seated when I arrived, his dark suit crisp, his gaze locked onto me the moment I stepped inside. As I walked toward him, my heels clicking against the marble floor, I felt the weight of his attention, heavy, consuming, filled with unspoken promises. You came, he murmured, standing to pull out my chair. I slid into the seat, smoothing my dress. You expected otherwise? He smirked. I hoped. The conversation flowed effortlessly, just like at the gala. He had a way of making me feel like the only woman in the room, his attention unwavering, his confidence intoxicating. But beneath the charm, there was something deeper, something dangerous. As the waiter cleared our plates, Adrian leaned forward, his fingers grazing mine. Tell me, Evelyn, he murmured, his voice low. What are we doing here? My breath caught. Having dinner. Is that all? His gaze searched mine, daring me to be honest. I should have played it safe. But instead, I let the truth slip. I don't know. Silence stretched between us, thick with tension. Then, he reached for his drink, taking a slow sip before setting the glass down. I don't share, he said. The words sent a shiver through me. A declaration. A warning. I knew what he meant. He wasn't like Daniel. He didn't want to be a game. Then maybe you should walk away, I whispered, though every fiber of my being wanted him to stay. He exhaled sharply, his jaw tightening. I should. But I don't want to. Neither did I. The check came, and before I could reach for my purse, Adrian settled the bill. Let me walk you out, he said. Outside, the city buzzed with life, but in that moment the world felt impossibly still. The air between us was charged, thick with anticipation. Evelyn, he murmured, stepping closer. I could smell his cologne. Rich, masculine, devastatingly alluring. My pulse thundered as his hand brushed against my arm, his touch igniting something primal within me. I should go, I whispered, though my body betrayed me, leaning toward him. Do you want to? He asked, his breath warm against my skin. No. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, he reached for me, his fingers tilting my chin upward. And then, before I could stop it, before I could stop myself, his lips were on mine. The kiss was slow, deliberate, as if he were savoring every second. Heat rushed through me, pooling low in my stomach. I should have pulled away. I should have stopped this before it went too far. But I didn't. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless, my mind spinning. Adrian's eyes were dark with desire, his grip firm around my waist. "Tell me to stop," he said, his voice husky. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. I couldn't say the words. So, I turned and walked away. But as I slid into the back seat of the car waiting for me, my lips still tingling from his kiss, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't over. Desire is a fire. Once ignited, it refuses to be contained. I told myself that night with Adrian was a mistake, that I had let things go too far. But in the quiet moments, when Daniel's hand brushed against my skin or his lips traced my collarbone, my thoughts weren't with him. They were with Adrian. I should have confessed everything to Daniel. He would have listened, maybe even encouraged me to go further. But I couldn't. This wasn't the game we used to play. This was real. This was dangerous. And it wasn't long before Adrian reached out again. "Adrian, still pretending you don't want this?" My fingers hovered over my phone. I should have ignored him. I should have blocked his number, deleted every trace of him from my life. Instead, I responded, "Me, I can't." A minute passed. Then another. "Adrian, can't? Or won't?" I closed my eyes, exhaling shakily. "Me, both." Silence stretched between us, the weight of my words sinking in. Then, his reply came, simple and devastating. "Adrian, meet me tonight." My pulse quickened. Every part of me screamed to say no. To shut this down before it spiraled further out of control. But I couldn't. The hotel was discreet, nestled in the heart of the city, where people checked in with secrets they had no intention of confessing. I hesitated at the entrance, my stomach twisting with anticipation. One step inside, and there would be no turning back. I thought of Daniel, of his smirk when he watched me flirt, the way his eyes darkened with something unreadable whenever I teased the line between loyalty and temptation. Would he stop me? Would he even care? A shiver ran through me. I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside. Adrian was waiting in the dimly lit room, leaning against the window with a glass of whiskey in hand. His jacket was discarded, the sleeves of his dress shirt rolled up, exposing his forearms. "You're here," he said, his voice calm, controlled. But his eyes, they told a different story. I swallowed hard, nodding. "I shouldn't be." "But you are," he murmured, setting the glass down. The air between us crackled with unspoken words, with want, with need. I had expected him to rush toward me, to claim me the moment I walked through the door. Instead, he stood still, watching, waiting. "Tell me why you're here, Evelyn," he said, his voice low. "I need to hear you say it." I hesitated. This was the moment. The last chance to walk away. But my body had already betrayed me. "I don't know how to stop," I whispered. His jaw clenched. In a single stride, he closed the distance between us, his fingers tracing my jaw, tilting my face upward. "Then don't," he murmured before his lips crashed against mine. The kiss was different this time, raw, desperate, consuming. His hands roamed my body, claiming every inch of me as if he had been starving for this moment. And maybe he had. Maybe I had too. The rest of the night was a blur of tangled sheets and breathless moans. Adrian wasn't gentle. He wasn't careful. He took me like he had been waiting his whole life for this, and I let him. Again and again. By the time I slipped out of the bed, the city lights were fading into dawn. My body ached in the most delicious ways, but my mind was restless. Adrian stirred beside me, his fingers tracing lazy circles on my thigh. "Stay," he murmured, eyes half-lidded with exhaustion. "I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I couldn't. I have to go," I whispered, slipping out of his grasp. His gaze darkened, but he didn't stop me. He knew as well as I did, this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. When I arrived home, Daniel was awake, sitting in the dim glow of the living room. He didn't look surprised to see me sneaking in at dawn. His lips curved into a slow, knowing smile. Was it everything you wanted? My breath caught. He knew. He had always known. And the worst part? I wasn't sure if I felt guilty or relieved. Guilt is supposed to feel like a weight, crushing, suffocating. But as I stood before Daniel, his dark eyes scanning my face, waiting for my response, I felt nothing. No shame. No remorse. Just the lingering ghost of Adrian's touch still burning on my skin. Was it everything you wanted? Daniel repeated, his voice calm, measured, almost amused. I swallowed hard, my pulse roaring in my ears. You knew! His smirk deepened. Evelyn, you think I don't notice when my wife walks through the door with another man's scent on her skin? He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. The real question is, do you want me to be angry? Something twisted inside me at his words. I expected accusations, maybe even rage. But Daniel wasn't the kind of man to beg, to cry, to break. That wasn't who he was. And deep down I had known this. You like this, don't you? I whispered, my voice barely audible. He chuckled. Do you? My breath caught. He was playing with me, toying with my emotions the way he always had, pushing me to the edge just to see if I'd jump. I should have denied it. I should have told him it was a mistake. But we had never been the kind of couple who played by the rules. It wasn't supposed to go this far, I admitted, my voice cracking. Daniel stood, slow and deliberate, his presence looming over me. But it did. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear, his touch featherlight. Tell me, Evelyn, if I had stopped you, would you have listened? I closed my eyes, hating how much I wanted him in that moment. No, I whispered. His fingers trailed down my jaw, his thumb brushing against my lower lip. Then why are we pretending this is something it's not? I exhaled sharply, stepping away from him, needing distance, needing clarity. Daniel, this isn't just a game anymore. Adrian, he's not like the others. He doesn't want to share. Silence stretched between us. Daniel's expression darkened, his amusement fading. And what do you want? I hesitated. The truth clawed at my throat, begging to be spoken. I wanted them both. But life wasn't that simple. I don't know, I finally admitted, my voice raw. For the first time, Daniel looked unreadable. He studied me for a long moment before turning toward the bar cart, pouring himself a drink. The ice clinked against the glass as he swirled the amber liquid. You should figure it out, he said, taking a slow sip. Because Adrian, he let out a humorless chuckle, shaking his head, he doesn't play well with others. A chill ran through me. There was something in his tone, something I couldn't quite place. Daniel, what did you do? He set his glass down with a quiet clink before meeting my gaze. You made your choice, Evelyn. Now we all have to live with it. A sharp knock echoed through the house. My heart leapt into my throat. I didn't have to ask. I already knew who it was. Adrian. I moved to the door, my hands trembling. But before I could reach for the handle, Daniel beat me to it. He pulled it open, revealing Adrian standing in the doorway, his jaw tight, his fists clenched at his side. You didn't answer my calls, Adrian said, his voice cold, controlled. Daniel smirked, leaning lazily against the doorframe. She's been busy. Tension crackled between them, thick enough to suffocate. Adrian's gaze flickered to me. Come with me, he said, his voice softer now, coaxing. You don't belong here anymore. Daniel let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. And where exactly do you think she belongs? With you. Adrian's jaw tightened. You don't deserve her. Daniel's smirk vanished. And you think you do? The air was electric, charged with something dangerous. I felt like a pawn in a game I had lost control of. Evelyn, Adrian said, his voice pleading now. Choose. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding against my ribs. Daniel watched me, waiting. He didn't look afraid. He didn't look like a man who had anything to lose. Adrian, on the other hand, he was a man who had already fallen too deep. This was my moment, my final chance to walk away. But in the end, we are all creatures of our own destruction. I took a slow step forward, my eyes locked onto Adrian's. His shoulders relaxed, his expression softening. He thought he had won. But then, I turned back, just enough to let my fingers trail against Daniel's before finally pulling away. Adrian's face darkened. "You're making a mistake." Daniel's hand curled around my waist, pulling me into his warmth. His breath ghosted against my ear, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe," I murmured, exhaling softly. "But he's not the one I made it with." Adrian stood frozen, his chest rising and falling with deep, slow breaths. But he knew. This wasn't a game he could win. And with that, I let Daniel close the door behind us, sealing away the temptation I had once thought I couldn't resist. Because in the end, it had never really been about Adrian. It had always been about Daniel, and he had known that from the very beginning.